Hello and welcome to the first line of Gate 60. This is a line called acceptance, and it's in a gate of limitation and acceptance. And as we know, the first line forms the foundation of the hexagram. The exaltation says the ability to maintain inner harmony when confronted by external limitations. Harmonic energy that can deal with external limitations. To be at peace with yourself. This is a key here. This is what the 60th gate is all about. To accept limitations, to maintain your harmony, to allow the limitation to be there. Because the one thing that the 60 knows, this is not about awareness knowing, this is a genetic kind of material knowing. So what the 60 knows is that a mutation is always possible. The limitation can always be transcended at some point. All it has to do is accept the limitation. The detriment says the drive for diversity, that when limited can become restless and agitated. Restless energy when confronted with external limitations. Here lies the melancholy that is inherent in the 60th hexagram and inherent in the individual process. It's the chafing against limitation. This is the individual who is forced to be influenced, or the individual child in a classroom where it is forced to be disciplined or communal. It's forced to be collective and join in with all those games and activities, all of these forces imposed on them. And in having to accept those limitations, they become restless. This is a mechanical thing. It doesn't require awareness. So the moment we see our own restlessness, we can look and see, what is it that I'm not accepting? Why am I suddenly so restless? Ra had his design Mercury in this detriment in the 60 line 1, and he said that he suffered terribly in this life because of it, at least when he was unaware of the mechanic. As an Aries and as a manifester, the moment he was in a situation where he felt he was being limited, he would get a restless buzz in his body, and he could feel very angry and uncomfortable and trapped. When you're not aware of the mechanics, you're at the mercy of the system, and it can be painful, and it can lead to all kinds of folly. But lines like this one, they can act as signposts for us in our process. Any moment that we feel agitated and restless, we can know that we are not accepting some limitation, and it can wake us up. It can remind us instantly. Because we understand how the mechanism works, the moment we recognize it, it stops bothering us because we know that there's no choice and it's pointless to get wound up. So this can actually be a great detriment. If you have this line, experiment with it. Would you like to? It's a generator gate, so you have that. So I ask you whether it's something you would like to experiment with to see what happens. When you come across an external limitation that you're not able to overcome, can you feel the melancholy, the sadness? Perhaps that sadness puts a pressure on you to get out of that situation. What is lying at the very root of the individual process is that nothing is going to happen for the individual until they accept their true nature, until they accept their limitations, their individuality, until they accept that they're a freak or that they have to explain themselves, that they are different. That they can accept that nothing is permanent, that mutation can always take place. And when it does take place, it takes place now. Then they are open to transcendence. So the grounding is coming from the 56th gate. And in the first line, it is called quality. This is that practical sense that even short-term activity should be of value. To accept that, perhaps. even short-term activity, which is something that sort of has an energy about it of the pulse, don't you think? Even though the 56 is actually a collective gate and not individual, there is still something about short-term activity that has a different kind of feel to it somehow. And of course, the 56 is a throat gate. It's not a motor. So there is nothing here that will sustain long-term activity. Sometimes when we're looking at the relationship between the sun and the earth, all that's necessary is to remember that they're both in the same line. Both line 1 in this case. And so they have an inherent relationship. They are both introspective and interested in the foundation and in the investigation of that foundation in order to become an authority. So just knowing the qualities of the lines and being aware of the genetic continuity, it's within that we can often find the link between the sun and earth, between that polarity. So the moon is still in gate 29 since 0619 this morning. It's the sacral gate of the abysmal. It's the gate of saying yes. Then the moon moves into gate 59 at 1659. This is the sacral gate of dispersion, of sexuality. This is a tribal gate in the defense circuit, and it's a roll gate. It gives us our strategies for bonding. And finally, then the moon transits into gate 40 at 3:47 tomorrow morning. This is an ego gate. It's the gate of aloneness, and it is also called deliverance. Gate 40 is part of the channel of community, which is all about bargains. Usually the bargain here being about getting the right amount of rest or recognition for all of the work that it does. So this is us. We're off and running now with gate 60. That's the first line. I'll be back tomorrow, of course, with the second line. Until then, thank you so much for joining me. We're reaching the end slowly, not long now for the new year. And I think I only have another 10 gates to go through before I reach the end of this particular cycle for me as well. Slightly different from the sun cycle. But yeah, so it's an interesting time. It's quite an intense time. And I'm definitely coming up some limitations, coming up with or to or against. I'm coming up against some limitations. I do have gate 60. I have it in an open root center. So it's uncomfortable to come up against limitations. And I've just come back from a month away, a really wonderful month away in the sun. Coming back to the limitation of a British winter. It's, that the melancholy is definitely a thing. Anyway, I will see you tomorrow for a second line. Until then, love yourself truly, wildly, madly, and go gently.